Hi, I'm Colin and welcome to How to Paint Watercolours. So if you're ready, we'll get started and we'll paint this one. Hello everyone and welcome back to Painted Watercolours with me, Colin. And being it's winter, I've chosen a winter mountain scene. I will do it in winter colours, and I've just stretched my paper. This is a £140 Bockingford watercolour paper, and I'll give you a run round of the colours in a minute. I'll tell you what I've done. I've just wet my paper, so I've got a thin film of water. This is Naples yellow. I've got a thin film of water on the surface of the paper, so I just float the colour into it. I've got the mountains running this way and I'll have the clouds coming off it this way as well, I think. Then I've dried off the mountain area around the line and just re-wet around the line up to the mountain tops, because I want to keep them clean, and this just stops the paint invading the mountains at the moment. It just minimises the damage. I'll give you a quick run round of the colours. Naples yellow, lemon yellow, cobalt blue, French ultramarine, cobalt violet, burnt sienna and a neutral tint. I'm going to mix the colour, so I'm going to put the cloud in first where I want it. So I'm going to take some cobalt violet and neutral tint. Get more of a violet colour, I think that will do it. Just bring some down here. Doesn't matter around here really, you're going to have some trees. I'll have some mist as well, I think. I'm just going to bring that in there. Just a little dark around the mountain tops, just to bring them out a little bit. Down. I'm just going to take some cobalt blue and put it into that with a little extra neutral tint. Once again, just framing the mountains up. Adding a little straightforward cobalt blue to bring it round. Just take some cobalt violet, bring it onto the top of this. Back to your mixture, cobalt violet neutral tint and cobalt blue. I'm leaving some gaps in between the colours. Add a little bit of strength into the bottom parts of some of this. I don't want the sky too heavy. Then I'm just going to drop whatever mixture's basically left, just in places. I want to take a kitchen towel. This is a dry one. I'm just going to pick out the rough areas. You see how that's rough? And just allow this to drop onto and soak up some of the moisture. Don't press, just allow the towel to do the work. This can give you some lovely unexpected effects in your clouds. And that sky should dry nice and soft, and I'm going to let that dry. Now that your sky is dry, I've re-wet the mountains that were once dry. They are now wet, and I'm going to put some shadow onto these mountains. So I'm going to take some of the cobalt blue. I do want it a little bit add a little bit of violet to it as well. I don't want it too blue. Just test it. That's a little bit too blue. That will do. And just where you think the shadows would be. Straight into the water, just put it in, don't worry about it. Allowing some white paper to show through for snow. Maybe there's some around there. I'm not really too bothered about this mountain here. I don't want any detail on this one really up here, as it will pull your eye out of the painting as the light comes through. Shadow there, the back side of these. And if you want your mountains to have steep sides, angle the brush that way. As the light is coming through generally from the centre, I'm going to put the shadow on the other side of this. Doesn't matter about this here, the trees are going to cover it. And I'm going to take some of the violet and drop that in there. And just change the colour slightly. Mixing some of that other colour in with it and just dropping a little bit of this in, just to give you just a different tone. So it's not all one flat colour. And then I'm just going to soften all this right down to where the water is. And along where the water is, I'm just going to drop some colour. I'm going to take some water and just drop that in. Just straightforward water. I'm going to leave that to dry. Now your mountain's in dry, we can mix up the colours to put some rocks in and some gullies. And I'd like everybody just to remember, this is only a suggested colour palette to use. You are more than welcome to use your own colours. So I'm going to take some of this and I want to deepen it a little bit. I'll make it a little bit more on the violet side, and then take it down a bit more with some neutral tint. Just create a darker, greyer colour. Don't want too much on it, and I'm just going to check to see we have a reasonable shade. Okay, I think that might do it. I'm just using the tip of the brush to add rocks in along this mountain top. Don't have the brush too wet. Sometimes it's nice if you can allow it to run out of paint, which can give you really interesting effects. Just a little hit and miss there. Not too much paint on the brush, so I'm just taking a little off each time I use it, because I want these mountains to be in the background. I don't want them to come too far forward. So you get a hit and miss when the colour's light on the brush. It's not too heavily loaded with paint, just a tiny bit over here. Shaping a gully in a U. Maybe this part here is rounded slightly, like a butte. One needs to be really in the background. Okay, then I'm going to let that dry. Now that your mountains are nice and dry, I'm going to run some water on this bit of a land area here. So we put some trees in, and I'm going to mix up another slightly darker colour. So I'm going to add some French ultramarine to that, just to darken that colour. Just a little bit on the blue side. That's a more neutral tint. Then I want to add just the tops of the trees in for the moment. And I'm going to take my very small mop brush and load it with paint, make sure there's enough on it. And just bring it down and into the water. Just allow it to drift into it. And I'm dancing around with it, making different trees. In case I want to put some darker patches in or lighter ones. It gives me a bit more fluidity to do it. I think we'll be okay. It's a little bit much on the brush, it's got a little blobby. The board is set at an angle so the paint will drift into the water you've put on. There's a bush here, some stuff, add a little bit of colour into the water. And I might just want to take a little bit burnt sienna, just to add a tiny bit of warmth to it, allow it to change colour and mix with the other colour. I'll take some water along the bottom, touch it in. I'm going to come across to this one, water again, just along the landmass. I don't mind if it runs. I'm going to darken this a little bit more. French ultramarine, some neutral tint, a bit more violet, a bit more neutral tint. Then once again, just going to put the tops of these trees in. Leaving these trees nice and airy. And drop it into the water. So if you enjoy these videos, then please leave a comment. It's always nice to hear from people who are viewing the video. Sometimes, I've said this before, painting a watercolour can sometimes be a bit like layering a cake. And I'm just going to take some neutral tint on its own, because this is a little bit closer than those. Just add a little bit of darkness into it. All while it's still wet, nice and wet. I'm bringing this into the water. Just adding a little bit of water that's on the brush, and just dropping that in, and allowing the paint to run into it. Then once again, I'm going to leave that to dry. Now your tree's nice and dry, some of the mist is appearing, as you can see where we dropped the water in. I'm just going to re-wet the whole of the lake area. So first of all, we're going to take a little bit of the Naples yellow that was in the sky. And I'll drop this roughly here. Cobalt violet. Maybe just drop that in the back. Cobalt blue with the cobalt violet. There's a little bit of cobalt blue in the sky there, so I'm going to put some in. So I'm going to put some French ultramarine in it. Neutral tint. And I'm going to use some neutral tint into the violet that's left. Just a touch of dark shadow in here, I think. Take some clean water and just drop it in. Deepen that a little bit more. You have plenty of time to do this. Now this is absolutely soaking wet, so this is going to have to dry off slightly before we can put the reflections in from the trees. So we'll give it about 10 minutes. Okay, I've given this about 10 minutes. I'm just going to move some cobalt blue into the cobalt violet that was in this little tray here. Some neutral tint. We'll just see how we go with this. I've got the board set at an angle because I want this to run down through the paint. Just give an indication of some reflections. Maybe some here as well. Just using the side of the brush, and I'm just dropping these in roughly where the trees are. And now we can allow all this to fully dry. Okay, everything's nice and dry, the lake's all misty, the trees and where the land mass is misty. I've just put in 3 birds there with a quick stroke of a brush, a liner brush, and I've put some light streaks just on the water here, just to break the reflections up and add a little bit more interest to the water. And I'm just going to put one more in here. And that's about all I want to do with the lake. That's a ruler and a craft knife. This is where you can get around to signing it, putting a mount around it and framing it. Like I say, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please click the like button. Please subscribe if you want to see more videos. So until next time, thank you very much for watching.